Social media will have us so gassed up thinking that everything is okay in our life when deep down we're struggling. And when it comes to mental health issues, a lot of people still carry a lot of stigmas and believe this and believe that. Well, today, this guest is going to talk about mental health and is going to talk about counseling and getting past all of these stigmas, especially when it comes to children. And depending on what community you're part of, you may think that getting help is a bad thing. You don't want to miss this episode, so let's get into it. All right, hello everybody. Welcome to High Ground Financial Freedom Podcast. And today I'm bringing on Rebekah Townsend. And this young lady, she has chosen to get into the field of clinical psychology, helping people out. And, we talk about faith, family, finance, and fitness. And today it's going to be more geared towards, the family side of the house. And it's going to be geared towards mental health. As most of you already know, I work through PTSD. I don't say I have and I deal with this. I don't really deal with it. I work through PTSD. And I think it's important to bring on a specialist to talk about mental health and all of the stigmas associated with seeking help. Okay, so Rebekah Townsend, Miss Townsend, Rebekah.
Hi.
So for the people that don't know you and the listeners and the viewers, I want you to share a little bit about yourself, okay?
Sure. So, hi, I'm Becca. You can call me Becca. I was born and raised in El Paso, Texas. I'm 28 years old, currently in the final stages of my clinical mental health counseling master's degree. A little bit about me. I'm super chill. I like to play video games, play my guitar, read comics. I'm pretty nerdy. So, all things nerdy I love. And yeah, I'm super stoked to be here. Thank you for having me on.
No, definitely, definitely. So let's talk about this clinical mental health, okay?
Sure.
And what drew you to want to pursue this? I mean, you're 28 years old, you're
hmm
working on your degree, your master's degree. What made you want to get into this field?
Sure. So for a really long time, I kind of didn't know what I wanted to do. I jumped through a lot of different majors when I was in my undergrad years. And when I was about 19 or 20, I was actually in an abusive relationship that really changed me in a lot of ways. And after I got away from him, I was kind of really confused with, I didn't know what had just happened to me. I didn't understand the things that I was going through. And eventually that drew me to kind of do my own research as to like what had happened. So, and that led me to a couple of different counselors online. The first being Chris Godinez, who is a godsend when it comes to anything on narcissistic abuse. Melania, Melanie Tanya Evans, sorry. Also, she was, all of their videos are available on YouTube, and they cover many different subjects aside
Hmm.
from abuse and relationships. But their insight on relational abuse really kind of was like turning on a light for me. Um, Everything suddenly made sense, and I started to really connect with the things that I was learning. And it completely made sense for me over time to pursue this path. I've always wanted to help people. I was just never quite sure what that looked like for me. Um, but once I started to learn more about psychology and clinical mental health counseling, for sure, it just made sense to me. So there's really no other direction for me at that point.
Wow, and I'm sorry to hear that you went through something, but at least you turned it into gold. You
Absolutely.
took something that was traumatic, and a lot of times, unfortunately, when we have trauma, whether it's in our family, job, okay, relationships, we allow that trauma to change us in negative ways. And then what did they say? Hurt people.
Absolutely.
And you chose to take it and to do something positive with it.
Right.
And so, who do you see right now, currently?
So primarily I'm seeing children. That's the area I have experience as a tutor. which made me feel really comfortable with working with kids. But I see all different kinds of populations. I'll see adults, primarily at my clinic that I am doing my internship at right now. We see a lot
Okay.
of veterans. We see kids. We see adults, couples. Primarily dealing with the ballpark of anxiety, depression, uh, post-traumatic stress disorder, kind of in that area.
Wow. And then how is it? Let's talk about different communities. What
Sure.
communities do you see that have an issue with seeking, you know, help for mental
Right.
health challenges or behavior challenges?
hmm well, there's always a stigma around seeking mental health for anyone, of course, but obviously there are populations that have it worse. Um, Living in El Paso, Texas, we're a big military city. Obviously, you're ex-military. My heart goes out to veterans specifically because I know how much turmoil they deal with in trying to seek treatment through the VA. Basically, I hear it's what I hear repeated over and over again from veterans is that they're so unhappy with the care that they receive through the VA, whether it be their total integrated health, whether it's physical or mental, you know. Um, so that's something that I hear a lot here, other than that, there's marginalized communities, obviously, that are going to have harder access to mental health, bigger barriers to mental health, whether it be they can't afford it or they don't have transportation to it. There's stigma within their culture.
Hmm.
Um, so I definitely try to approach everyone with a very through a multicultural lens because I mean I'm a white woman, raised in a Christian household. I have a set of, I'm very different from the clients that I see personally, so I try to approach everyone with an open mind and curiosity always.
Wow. Stay curious on asking questions and learning the people that are coming to see you. I
Yes.
love that. So,
Yes.
should people be afraid of mental health or seeking help?
Absolutely not. No. We we
No,
have
no, no.
made.
That's easier said than done. So why
Oh, for
why should
sure.
yeah why shouldn't people be afraid of that?
So I think it's a brave thing to do. I don't want to discredit that at all. It's absolutely brave to say I need help and I can't do this on my own.
Mm,
And I understand why it's terrifying. It was terrifying for me when I started my counseling journey as a patient, not a client, not a provider. Um, you're afraid of judgment, of course. Humans, we do our best not to judge each other, but at the end of the day, like, we can't control what other people think of us, and that's
mm,
scary sometimes, especially when you're bearing your soul to them about the things that hurt you and the things that scare you and the whole kit and caboodle. But no, I think the important thing to remember is that in the society that we live in specifically, we have made strides, of course, but we kind of went from this idealistic, when I think about the 60s, the 70s, my parents' generation, it was you don't talk about your skeletons. We keep
mm,
that private. Or the stuff that we go through, you don't tell your business to people, right? And now it's evolved into with social media and everything. Now it's this fabricated facade that we put forth because we want everyone to see how great we're doing all the time. We only put our highlights up on social media, right? And so it can feel very alienating for people, I think, when they're constantly bombarded by, like, oh, and she got married and they got a degree and they're out having fun with their friends. And what am I doing? So I think our society is very good at, like, pretending everything's okay.
mm.
But in reality, if you're just real with one another and you talk to one another, you can find out pretty quickly that everybody's struggling with something. And I think there's communion to be there's partnership to be held in that sharing the burdens with one another. Humans are communal creatures. We're never meant to go through life alone, and that includes the good and the bad. We have to share it with one another. Um, so I think it's really important that if you are struggling, and maybe you don't want to seek mental health assistance right now, and that's fine. But it's also important to make sure that you surround yourself with people who support you in the things that happen to you, the good and the bad.
I think that's powerful. And you're very wise beyond your years. I know you're in your late 20s. I don't want to say your age unless you want to say your
I
age.
can say it, I
You
don't
know,
mind. I'm
but
28.
okay, so 28. You look very young now. When
Yes.
people come to talk to you, are your clients usually older than you?
So I have a couple of clients that are around my age,
Okay,
and then I primarily see children and adolescents right now. So
okay.
I see some teenagers, I see some young ones. So yeah, typically with interns, somebody and there's that stigma too, where I don't have 50 years of experience behind my belt.
Mm,
So somebody who is 55, divorced, has a bunch of kids may think that, I can't relate to her. And, I may not be able to relate to her in that aspect, but I always still strive to provide that empathy and that safe space to be seen and heard. But I understand that, a client like that may want somebody who has been through a divorce, may has kids, they
like you
may
said,
need they
you come with a curious heart, and I
oh,
think
of
you have that
course.
curious heart, and you're asking those questions, and you provide that empathy. I think that opens people up,
Sure,
and so.
sure.
And let's
But
jump back into
yeah,
that kids thing, the kids arena,
sure.
because there's a lot going on with kids right now in our country and
Yes.
trust with children. How do you, get that trust from the parents when you're sitting down with their children?
hmm so my focus is always just on building a great relationship with the kid, first and foremost. Counseling, counseling with anybody, you cannot make progress if you do not have rapport with your client. So I always seek to build that great relationship with my client. I think I'm pretty childish at heart in a good way. I'm very imaginative. I love, when I was a tutor, I loved to go outside and play with them and imagine and do all kinds of, get very hands on with the kids. So I think, and a big part of it is just being curious about what they like too. A lot of kids their parents know that they like certain things, but they don't take the time to be like, well, show me, why do you like it? Like, why is it, what's important about it for you? And so I always try to be super inquisitive and curious about what interests them and very encouraging, obviously. I have a lot of artistic kids. I have a lot of kids who love to play video games. Those are things I love to do as well. So being able to hold a conversation with them about the things that are important to them is a good starting off point for sure.
Okay, and I'm gonna jump somewhere real quick. Now, what you said
Sure.
games, so you're a gamer.
Yes, I am.
So real quick, what's one of your favorite games?
One of my favorite games. My favorite game of all time is actually The Last of Us. It's a story driven game about a guy who's and it's more mature. Kids wouldn't play it, but it's about a guy who has lived through decades of an apocalypse of sorts. There's an infection that has wiped out most of humanity, and he is tasked with. He lost his daughter in the outbreak of it, so he becomes this very grizzled, hardened older man. And he is tasked with transporting a little girl who is immune to the virus across the United States in search for a cure, essentially. And it's about his relationship that he builds with her over time.
All right, coming back to those kids, I like that.
Absolutely.
And then so parents, what can parents do to assist in this whole process? Let's say you're working with the child, what can they do?
Sure. So one of the best pieces of advice I received from my supervisor through my master's program was you can never ask a kid to do something that the parents aren't willing to do themselves. You can't ask for the same level of effort from the kid if the parent is not willing to put that same effort in too. Um, Kids are figuring things out for themselves. I think we as adults can kind of forget what it's like to be a kid, to be so influenced by the environment and the people around you. And they're truly just doing their best, you know? So I think for parents, the more hands-on you can get with your kids, the better. I know I saw it a lot in my tutoring program, unfortunately, where it was they are iPad parents, if you will, where they love to just shove their kid in front of a screen and kind of
Hmm.
call it a day. Um, Getting to know your kid as an individual, I think, is so important. So many parents kind of see kids as an extension of themselves, so they hold their kids to the same standards that they hold themselves. Um, but the kid is individual. Um, they're different. They're their own person, and I think supporting them in their growth and how they explore their identity is super crucial. But obviously, just being there, like effort at the end of the day. You know, your kids see when you're trying. They can tell when you're not checked in. They can tell when you've had a long day and you're checked out, you know. And of course, we can't be on all the time. We're not robots, but as long as you're providing your kid with consistent effort and showing up in the ways that matter, I think that's the best thing.
And I tell you, you're definitely wise beyond your years. You know, just hearing the way you speak about children and the respect that you have for them. And I
Absolutely.
think, you know, you
Thank
bring
you.
a fresh perspective. And I think it's important, you know, you may not have all of that experience, but you're very relevant because you're tied into the individual when they come to see you. You know, you're putting the time and energy that's necessary. So I think that's very important, you know, that you show and you seem to care.
Oh, I
Okay.
do.
And I
Yeah.
think that's what needs to come through when people, when they're thinking about their mental health or sharing it or being open, you know, give people a chance to talk about it. I know when I first started, you know, seeking a counselor, I was like, you know, I was a sergeant major in the army. I'm like, I'm not going to see nobody because
Yeah.
of the stigma,
Of
because
course.
of the weakness that is associated with asking for help. We're always here,
Hmm.
ask for help. But again, you know, and now I've seen over time it's changed. Things are seem like it's getting better. I know around the different military communities there are behavior health centers opening up everywhere. Where do you see this whole psychology field moving? You know, in the next 5 to 10 years.
Sure. So a big development within the last couple of years with the COVID pandemic and everything turned to telehealth, and that is a huge part of our business now of the mental health field. Um, there are people who, for whatever reason, you know, they can't get to the clinic or they don't want to come to the clinic, and I think it's awesome that they can seek and receive services just like you and I are talking right now. You know, sometimes that's what they need. So the field has made a huge push to integrate telehealth practices into, you know, how we conduct business and everything. I think that that's awesome. And obviously, you know, things. It's such a digital world that we live in, so I'm always curious to see how that's integrated as well. I recently took a course on how to integrate video games into counseling with children and everything. So I think it's like an ever expanding perspective as to integrating it digitally and everything like that. But I'm also hoping that as time goes by, that, you know, it does become, like I said, we've made progress towards destigmatizing it, but we're certainly not there yet. So I would love to see, you know, in the next 5 to 10 years, that grow even more, where more people are open about their mental health struggles and more open about the fact that they seek services, you know.
And where are they more open, face to face or sitting in the comfort of their own home over the computer?
Right. So I believe that that completely depends on the client. I have only done a handful of telehealth services before, and I talked to my counselor over telehealth during the pandemic. There are benefits, and you know, there's pros and cons to both. You know, I like to get face to face with people because there's certain things you can pick up on, their body language that kind of tells more of what they're doing. You can do
Hmm.
more exercises with them and more interventions with them in person that, like, it would be really hard to implement online. But ultimately, if a client feels more comfortable in a virtual space, then I would never discourage that, you know. um, it's ultimately whatever benefits them the most, you know?
Okay. And you've talked a lot about the individual client seeing you.
Mm.
Let's come back to you.
Sure.
Okay. And then what fears did you face jumping into this thing, this whole new field?
So many. I mean, honestly, it's still something I contend with. There's, I mean, obviously my age is one of them. It was a matter of, do I really have something to bring to the table? You know, it was like the self-doubt that I've dealt with, um, a lot of imposter syndrome over the course of my pre-internship that I had, which was about 4 months of just practice before I got into my internship. Um, there was a lot of like, am I really making a difference? Am I doing this correctly? You know, because the things that they teach you in during your college courses, the practice sessions that you do for courses differ so much from the actual courses that you take. And I think it's, according to when I talked to like my peers and everything, they were going through a lot of the same feelings of like, this is so different. I feel like I'm doing it wrong because it's not what we practiced and everything. So there's still that like underlying just desire to really do well and do right by my clients, that drives me. But I'm finally at the point where I'm not so self-conscious about it, at least,
Hmm.
especially when I have like, you know, even just being told like connecting with my clients in itself is a joy. But when I do start to see them, even like small steps towards better well-being for them that they take, and that's always my approach, is that I'm not here to fix anyone. I'm here to give you the tools to help you better yourself.
Say that one
Um,
more time.
I'm not here to fix anyone, as a counselor. My job is to give you the tools and to better yourself and to make a better life for yourself.
That's excellent. I think a lot of times we hear about, somebody fixing us, or I don't need fixing. And
Mhm.
that's not you all's goal is to fix. It's to give people the
No.
tools to work through their issues, not to deal
Yeah,
with, because we deal with problems. And this is not a
absolutely.
problem. This is a challenge. Look at it as
Hmm.
a challenge. And then you just take the tools and you apply those tools to all of these different challenges. And it just makes you stronger as a human being.
Hmm.
And it also builds
Absolutely.
empathy. And so let's look at this whole empathy thing, because you seem like a very empathetic individual.
Yes.
So if someone's coming in and they're giving you all of these things that they're going through, and that
Hmm.
stuff has to weigh heavy on your soul and on your spirit. And I know you're a spiritual person, okay,
Hmm.
and there's Christ in your life. And outside of that, how do you navigate all of that stuff that's being thrown at you?
Right. Well, truthfully, I'm still figuring that out. You know, I have made a lot of progress from where I used to be. I was such an emotional person, and things really would weigh heavy on me, especially when I was a tutor. You know, my kids, some days I would come home cry from hearing what my kids were going through at school or at their homes and stuff like that, because I just wanted to help them and save them from what they were going through. And there's days, I've had sessions where clients will tell me things and it's heavy. Counselors are humans, it's gonna weigh on us in one way or another. But they teach us the importance of self-care and kind of being able to disconnect from it in healthy ways, prioritizing our mental health too, doing things that bring us joy when we come home, um, and just doing our best to have a healthy distance from it, which,
Hmm.
I'm still trying to figure that out, because it does affect me, and counselors do suffer from burnout quite frequently. Um, but I think it's a matter of boundaries as well. They teach us, healthy boundaries. Um, so yeah, I wish I had a better answer for you. It's a process I'm still kind of trying to figure out too. I can recognize that I've made progress, but there are days when it weighs on me for sure.
No, I mean that's a good answer. I mean you're human. I mean,
Hmm.
how effective can you be unless you're willing to jump off the ledge with the person and hold their
Absolutely.
hand? So in that,
Yes.
you are being affected by what they're being affected by.
Hmm.
You know, if you look at the chaplains in the army, they deal with the most issues. They have the most mental health issues because everyone goes to the chaplain or the
Yeah.
chaplain corps, you know, or the chaplain's assistants, and everybody's giving them all of their problems. And when do these individuals have an opportunity to pause and to get all of that stuff out of their spirit, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
I think that's going to be an ongoing thing for you for the rest of your life. And I think if you
Definitely.
ever come to a place where you're not affected by people's situations, you might not be in the right profession anymore.
Hmm.
I think that's
Absolutely.
what makes you all in that in this profession good at what you do. The
Sure.
fact that you are, you know, affected. Think about if you're a
Yeah.
nurse or if you're a soldier or if you're somebody that you're a person that serves other people, you're going to be affected. There's no way not to
Absolutely.
be affected.
Especially, yeah. And one of the things that the dean of my college kind of laid the foundation for us when we began this thing is that, like, so many times when people are down in the well, their friends, their family, they want to help, and they're giving them the ladder and they're saying, come on, get out of the well, like, here I am to help you and stuff. But sometimes they just need someone to jump down in that well and sit with them for a little bit too,
Hmm.
you know?
Oh, wow. I love
And
that.
that's, people have a hard time holding and just sitting with other people's grief, their anger, their sadness. We constantly move to fix in our society, um, but it's powerful to just hold space for it and acknowledge it and sit in it with them for a little bit.
Man, that's beautiful. Just sit there and be quiet. Just listen.
Hmm.
Sometimes just listening in.
Absolutely.
So, what are your man, that's good. I love that. So, what are your goals like your goal as a 28-year-old woman, you know, in this field?
Hmm.
Again, you see a lot. Again, you know, wise beyond your years. But what's your
Thank you.
goals?
So my goals, I am about well, I'm almost halfway through my internship at this point. I'll be graduating in August. So once I graduate, basically have to pass an exam to get my associate's license. And then once I get that associate's license, I am basically free to practice as an associate for over the next 2 years. I have to accrue a certain amount of hours. Um, and I'm going to work for either an agency or in a behavioral center, or even I've even considered working in a rehab center because I resonate with the population of addictions and the modality that they use to counsel those who have addictions. So I'm kind of testing the waters about where I want to go, but eventually I'd like to open my own private practice.
Okay. Around military centers, military installations, or does it even
Right.
matter?
So, well, I'm planning to leave El Paso at some point. I've lived here my whole life and I kind of am ready for a change. So I'm probably going to end up either in California or Colorado, more than likely. But absolutely, as far as like populations, I see I'm kind of very open at this point. But I definitely, my work with children has like definitely inspired me to kind of definitely seek more specialized training in that areas. So I'd love to get certified in play therapy. I'd love to get certified in art therapy, certain things like that.
Okay. And as a woman in this field, I want you to speak to all the women out there or and young people out there. If
Hmm.
they're considering, you know, something that they're like, you know what, I'm too young to get into this, or I don't know about this, or they just have any type of fears or any type of challenges, what would you say to them leaning in to jump into something that they're completely unfamiliar with? Yeah, what
Right.
would you say to those people?
The time is going to pass anyway, whether you do it or not, right? I feel like time is our most precious commodity. And I I am historically a person who has been stopped by fear a lot of times. And I always, looking back over the course of my life, I always regret my inaction the most. Um, so I would just say, if you're scared, do it scared, but do it. Like, challenge yourself to get out of your comfort zone, because that's where you grow, you know? And it doesn't
I
have to be,
love that.
it doesn't have to be huge. It can be little things. But challenge yourself. Do it. You can do it scared, but do it. That's like one of my favorite things ever.
Man, if you're scared, just do it scared.
Hmm.
I like that. I like that. Are you
Yeah.
working on a book or anything like that?
No, sir. My creative outlets are typically playing my guitar. I like to paint in my spare time,
Hmm.
stuff like that. I'd
Okay.
love to write a book one day, though. That would be super
I
fun.
think you should. I think you should. I think you're being exposed to a lot at a young age. And again, you are wise beyond your years. You should definitely lean into all of this experience and all of this knowledge that you have and all of these things you have to offer other people. You should sit down and make zero assumptions that, well, maybe somebody already wrote about it. You should write about it. You should lean into it because, again, having spoke with you a couple of times and seeing what you bring to the table, that's why I sought to have you on here because I
Hmm.
want people to see that, you know what, dealing with mental health is a real thing. It's a real physical, tangible thing. And there are
Yes,
people out there that actually care and don't want to fix you, but just want to give you the tools to help you.
absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for your kind words. That means a lot.
All right, now, so leaving, what do you want people to leave with as we close this? What do you want them to leave with?
I hope that, our discussion has opened the door for a little bit more context about what it's like to receive mental health services, and hopefully made it a little less scary for someone who may or may not be considering, seeking mental health. My, like I said, there's something important to me about sharing the things that we go through together. All of my closest relationships are all the people who know everything I've been through. They're there to help me with the bad and they're there to celebrate me with the good. And I think those are the most authentic and genuine relationships. Obviously, we can't have those with everyone, but I think it's really important to seek those out in our life. And yeah, I hope that this was beneficial for
Oh
someone
no, it,
to.
it, it definitely was. I'm sure it was beneficial for me. And with that, thank you for your time, Rebecca. Thank you for your energy, and thank you for
Thank
your
you.
transparency. Sharing all that
Absolutely.
you shared because again, mental health is something that we need to get past all of these stigmas. We need to be okay. If we break our arm, we're gonna go see somebody. If we're broken in here or broken in here, we should go see somebody. It's okay to be
Hmm.
broken.
Yeah,
Okay. So with that,
absolutely.
hey guys, listen. You heard it first here from Rebekah Townsend. This young lady poured it out. If you're dealing with something, you're going through something, go seek some help. And with that, let's continue to get that financial freedom. I hope you all have a great day and God bless.